Well, hello, everybody. This is Keith Jowers with Dads for Life, and I'm here at Studio 425 with our broadcast this evening. I'm a little later than I normally am on a Friday night live show. We are normally at 8 p.m. on Friday Night Live. However, tonight I had another event, and I told you the other night, I believe, Wednesday night, that I'd be a little detained tonight. But hopefully, you can still join in and see what we're all about tonight as we talk about the subject of change. And this subject, well, we want it to be a little bit fun. You know how I roll sometimes. I think about how how actually that, well, when it goes to change, sometimes you have to, well, be a little creative, and that's what I like to do. And any podcast that I do or any teaching I do, I try to be as possible, as creative as possible. But tonight we're a little bit late tonight, but I wanted to go ahead and plan some things earlier today to get some things going for you tonight. And I have my whole studio kind of wrapped up with some fun things that we're going to do here in just a few minutes. I want to talk about the word change. We are Dads for Life. You can find us at dadsforlife.com, or just go to my name, keithjowers.com, leads you to the same spot. We've got some new things happening with our website right now. You can check out some of those things. But the whole month of May, we'll be progressing to some other things we're doing for our ministry now. And two things will start tomorrow. One at 6 p.m., we're going to actually be doing our first radio show live on HAPS here. It'll go out to all our platforms, international radio show. And we're also going to be doing at 8 o'clock, we'll be releasing the Dad's Garage first episode. So we're excited about that as well. Thank you, Glenda, for the award she's given me tonight. So if you're on HAPS, you can kind of comment with us right here straight from HAPS. And if you're on one of my other broadcast platforms, we will catch those comments as soon as we can. But let's go ahead and talk about change a little bit. What is change? Let's define it. Basically, to be, well, is to make someone or something a little different, alter or modify a thing that we're doing, or maybe we're modifying something that we have had around for a long time. It needs a little bit of modification. We're doing that. We're changing that. Maybe we need to change our attitude some. And well, I've been through that myself in life, so we all go through that sometimes. But also, it's to replace something with something else, something old with something new. So when you think about things, there's a lot of things in life that maybe when we were growing up that we had, and you look back now on those things and you're going like, wow, that's kind of a collector's item. Well, I have been collecting various things and items for many years. And well, I just like old things. I like to collect old things that were, oh, excuse me, my phone's ringing. Hello? Yes. Oh, okay. Well, I'm in the middle of a broadcast now. So you see, folks, it's an old rotary phone, and you may have used one of these growing up, right? Well, we don't use these rotary phones anymore. But I found it kind of interesting that when I found that old rotary phone, I thought, well, that reminds me of my kid days. So because we had rotary phones, and I actually on the wall in our kitchen, and I couldn't text on it. I couldn't, play or text on. I couldn't play movies on. I couldn't play music on it. But when it rang, I answered the phone. I don't know if you've ever done that or not when you were growing up, if you had one of those phones. But if you did, you know that, well, answering a phone today is a little different, isn't it? So making sure that we're going out on our other platforms, and it looks like we are. So here, we'll just continue this on. All right. So I want you to think about change tonight in a way that, well, it kind of it's going to help you. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But when you think about an old phone like that, I was really cool as a dad, being a single dad at one time. And I was a divorced dad. I was being involved in my daughter's life as much as I could, which I've encouraged a lot of dads to do that are in that same boat. You have to be there for them, but you can communicate with them today far more than what I could. But I used to have a beeper, and my daughter thought I was pretty cool with that. But then I got this thing. So I went from that rotary phone, but then I got this bag phone, and I used to carry it on my shoulder or I carried in my car. And I don't know if you had a bag phone or not in the 80s, but I had one and I seemed to be really cool. Well, at least my definition of cool, right? But what about music? Did you like music growing up? Or did you have a lot of different kinds of music and different kinds of styles of music that you liked? I know I did, but I don't never remember playing these, but these were the 33 albums. Okay. They're a little thicker than your actual vinyl albums, and they played at a different speed for you to get the proper sound that you really needed to have. Well, then it went to the vinyl album, and my mom had a lot of albums around, old Johnny Cash album here, and it has all of his earlier hits on it. But then we went to, from that, we actually came up with the 45s. And if you remember that the 45s, you had to have a special disc to actually play that, didn't you? You had to have this little yellow thing or different colored item that they had to go in the center of this and play it on there just like you would a 33 at the time. But we don't play these anymore, do we? I know they made great frisbees when you were a lot younger and you didn't have a frisbee around, and my mom would start missing them and want to know where her little records were. So I had to admit that I might have used them for frisbees. And then we had the old 8-track tape. Remember the 8-track tape? Now this is a really special 8-track tape because it has somebody I know on it. So we went from that 8-track tape, which I had in my car at one time, to something that went to this, which was a cassette tape, didn't we? So you can see the music industry was changing a lot. The phones changing a lot. Cameras were changing a lot because who remembers the old Brownie type camera? Okay, from way back in, well, years ago, right? In the 60s, I think these things were around. And then, as cameras started developing, then I got a little into photography one time, and I said, "Oh, I really like this." And then I went to the Instamatic. Who remembers the Instamatic or the 126 style camera? I have a old camera collection around here, and I have a lot of different types of cameras. And then we went to you got the big fancy uh, cameras like Nikons and Canons and that kind of thing. So the cameras changed, communications changed, music changed a lot, and now you can do music, you can do videos, you could do pictures, and you can do a lot of that on the current phone today. And when you think about it, everything that you used to do in the way of electronics or videos or all that, you can do on this smartphone today. But times have changed. Technology has gotten better. But then the things we used to have or used to do, they've become a collector's item a lot. Now, some of the special things that I collect in life are from my grandfather or my father. And I think about my grandfather having a drill like this, right? And you used to actually turn the drill, but you had to turn it really fast, okay, to really get that drill going. It had to be oiled right. And he used to could oil that thing with a little oil can like this. Is how the oil used to be that we can now get in a little plastic tube. And then I think about today, you just go to the tool bag and you pull out just a electric or a battery operated motorized type drill like that. So things changed and got a little bit better, didn't they? And then one of the special things I have in my collector's items is a ruler that my dad used as a plumber. And you actually had to roll this or kind of fold this thing out like this to get to the measurement that you wanted. And being it belonged to my dad, I thought it'd be pretty cool to hold on to that for a while. So it's been around for a long time in our family. But then today, you can actually take measurements back on the smartphone. So you see, change does happen. And change is better sometimes, or it makes things a little easier sometimes, doesn't it? So think about the things that you might have around your house and how maybe they're not used anymore because of change. But think about actually you changing. And that's sometimes a little harder, isn't it? That's a little harder because when you do that, you have to really dig deep and you have to think about, well, how do I make myself better? How do I dig deep inside and make myself a little bit better? Maybe because I could make someone else better because I've helped myself become better. There's some typical reasons why people resist to change. We don't always like it, do we? We don't always like change because it hurts. It makes us uncomfortable. It gets us out of that comfort zone. So here's some typical reasons why people resist changing. They misunderstand about the need for change or when the reason for the change is unclear. When you resist to change something that other people see wrong, or they see that you're having an issue with things that, and you're resisting that change, but other people see it, it can kind of, well, it can kind of prolong your success in something because you don't see it yet. You don't see what everybody else sees. Sometimes we resist the change simply because we are fearful of the unknown. One of the most common reasons for resistance is that fear that people have because they don't know that if they change, even though it may be for the better, is how it's going to come out. Number three would be like a lack of competence, is that there's a fear of people that will seldom admit actually that we have that lack of competence to change. We know it's going to be better, we know it's going to be good for us, but we don't know how to change. But as you can see with the collector items I have around here, change is good because it can make things easier in our lives. So why do people change? Should we change? Is it impossible for us to change? Well, sometimes it is because of the resistance that we have within ourselves, within the own thinking box of our head. When we get that thinking box kind of cleared up a little bit, we can store some newer things in there, can't we? Another resistance to change is just connected to the old way. Oh, things were so much better in the old days. Well, one day somebody will probably say that about today we're living in today. I won't be around here probably for that, but there are going to be people one day that say, "Oh, it was good in the old days," making this day the old days. But I can remember things about the old days, so to speak, because I'm living in those days now where I can say that. I qualify to say those old days, right? How about you? So I qualify to say those things because I remember the old days when you can leave your doors open at home. You can leave them unlocked actually when you go to bed. In certain neighborhoods, you could go outside and play and not be stuck playing video games all day in your room. You could go outside and play with your friends, and you knew at dark time you needed to be home because that's when supper was ready. And don't make mom call you twice. See, to me, those were some of the good old days because I didn't have so much to keep up with. Kids today's schedules are really, really busy, aren't they? Continuing to talk about change and the resistance to change is that low trust that some people have in changing. We don't believe that you can change. We don't believe or that we can change. We don't believe that we can actually make ourselves better by changing sometimes. And to change just for the sake of change is not always good. And I'll agree with that. There's got to be a better solution down the road for change. Another resistance to change is it might be a temporary fad. And when people believe that this change, well, it's gonna change again, right? It's not gonna last. So people resist to change that. People, they don't like to be insulted, not being consulted. If people are allowed to be part of the change, then it's less resistance. Sometimes a company, a leader, and I've been involved in some companies where leaders will make changes and not even think about the effects it's going to do on their employees, and it's a bad change. But then there's those leaders that will make a change after they consult the employees and let the employees be part of the change, and that's a better change because it's less resistance to that change. So poor communication is another resistance to change. Sometimes it's self-evidence that when you fail to communicate proper things, then to your employees, so to speak, your employees are going to resist that change because you didn't communicate that properly. And sometimes change is pretty exhausting to make it, um, to make you and others that are involved in the change pretty exhausting. I mean, to where you can really think that, man, that's a lot of work to do all that change. I don't want to be involved in that. And then sometimes there's no benefits or rewards to the change. So employees don't like that type of change. But let's bring it back home to us, to you and me. If there's something that you know you need to change, then by all means, find a way to change it and make it work for you. Your change is not going to be the same for my change. But the goals of your heart, I learned that recently, are important for you to make a change sometimes. Maybe within your marriage or within your family, or maybe mom and dad with your own children. Maybe the change that you need to make is to communicate better with your children instead of the my way or the highway type approach, as I've heard it said before, is maybe actually discuss things openly with your children, your family, having a sit down around the dinner table time. But Keith, that's too hard to do these days. That's too hard to gather everybody together. Everybody's schedule's busy. I know. So schedule it and make sure that you have a couple of times a week where the family can sit down and talk about things. Moms and dads, you have to understand your children need to know that home is the safest place for them to be. And when they know that in their heart, they know that they can come to you and they can talk about things without being openly ridiculed about them or saying they're bad ideas or whatever. I have found that parents that work these type of ideas out or situations out with their kids come out with a better solution. So change is important when it needs to be changed. Change for the sake of it is not always good. But when you're involved in it, or you can make that change on your own because you know it's better, or talk with dads who have bad habits. I mean, really bad habits, health wise or maybe relationship wise, and discussing it with somebody who I'm just I just give them straight up answers. When you discuss it with someone like that you can trust, sometimes it just clicks that maybe they're right because you're the one that's right. You just talked it out with somebody. So, do you need to change? Only you can answer that. And I hope that talking about some of this stuff tonight and talking about how things have progressed from one thing to another, things can get better, right? You can go from playing one record to having 4,000 on a USB. Okay. Now, sometimes you don't need to change that much in your head sometimes because it can really confuse you, but a little bit at a time, I think will help you understand that change can be better for your future and your family, and especially your children. So it's up to you what you have to change, but you can do it. The reason I know you can do it is because, well, God's always with you to help you make that change. The quote of the night is: the days you are most uncomfortable with are the days that you learn the most about yourself, especially involving change. And the scripture I chose tonight was Ecclesiastes 3:1. It says, for everything there is a season and a time for everything that matters under this heaven. So there is a season and a time for everything. Now that's like a whole chapter of some things revolving around changing, and but I'm talking about just there's a time and a season to change. So we at Dads for Life, we've been growing for a while now, and especially, well, last year was kind of stagnant. Not a lot of support donations came in, but we just kept our own. We just kept doing what we can to still encourage, enhance, and enrich dads and what we consider their greatest asset on earth, and that's their children. And we can continue to try to help them build that asset, right? Because it was tough last year. But this year's getting, I think, can be a little bit better as we get along a little bit forward. We're already in the month of May. Isn't that exciting? I mean, or is it? It's going pretty fast, isn't it? And things are changing. Things are changing in a lot of ways around us. But I want you to think about your area where you can change. And that was the subject for tonight. So as we change here at Dads for Life, check out our new website as we're starting to build that. And some things are changing on our website right now. You'll see a new facelift to it as we're continuing to build that through the month of May. But also I want you to think about just how you can help and encourage somebody else. Because that's what we try to do here at Dads for Life. Tomorrow we've got two new things happening at 6 p.m. We'll be doing our radio show. We're going to start getting back into radio like we were many years ago, and because now we can get out there on the internet and go all around the world pretty quick. And then also at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, we'll be doing our first Dad's Garage show, and I hope you check that out at some point, either when it goes live at 8 o'clock or on the replay. So you can keep up with us at dadsforlife.com. If you want to partner with us right there for very little to whatever amount, you can do that as well. We're a nonprofit organization. Everything that comes into the ministry goes back out through the ministry to help families stay encouraged in raising their kids. So until tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, this is Keith saying, go out and encourage, enhance, enrich the life of someone today or tomorrow, but make sure you start with your children because they truly do need it the most. God bless you, everyone. Bye bye.